Alright, hello guys. We are going to do something neat. We're going to work on type functions. And yesterday I rebooted type functions to make sure that the code compiles with master always. And let's see if that's the case. So new session. There is no need for you to know where I'm surfing at. So it's like that. If we go to dlang DMD and on the pull requests, there is a t-alias branch which has some of the code required for type functions, and the goal is to have it compile on all the machines, on all the testers, and be green. And I think we added a few tests. Where's the coverage change in type semantic? Because I can't remember changing that. This is ridiculous. I do not know how these coverage changes are. Oh, I do know how these coverage changes come to be. They happen because I've added files, which means that the line numbers that are used, they shift. I see. So what are the diffs? Yeah, this is t function isn't being called, though that's weird. That should be called anyway. Now we are trying to make use of the change that we did before, and let's see if we can get just the size of a type. So let's start with a simple type function. I think I have the test alias simple file here that has one is expression. That won't work right now, but what we can do is trying to get the string off, and that would just be f. So if everything works, then we should get the string s1 out of here. There we go. Test alias simple. And it says cannot pass type as one as a function argument. I thought we fixed that already, but apparently that's not the case. So let's see where that problem comes into. Like, why do we have it? And how do we fix it? This will be too small for you to read. This will not be. Okay, let's leave it at that. Maybe add that. Yeah, that should be fine, I think. And we want to know, we want to look at this arrow cannot pass type. So let's see where that is. In expression sum. There. So this pre-function parameters protects us from types being passed into the wrong places, and we need to know from where this is called, because this is obviously called from somewhere where we don't pass in the function declaration. So we do this. Size t line equals line. Luckily it's only called from this file, so that should be the only place where it is called from. Just do this. D like that. And we pass the line in. And now if we recompile and run our test again, the error message should have the line number at the end. And it does. 4374. So let's go there. Expression sum. Line is 4374. Sure enough, this is the place where pre-function parameters get called. We just pass fd in here as the function declaration, and we hope that we have one. If we don't have one, compilation will fail, or we get the error again if the function declaration isn't set. Looks like the function declaration isn't set. I mean, what can we do in this case? We gotta see where the function declaration comes from. And it may be that it is it's not a template instance. So it may be that case. Let's just do a printf here. Talk.star. And then we would see that when we run the function. We don't see the talk.star. So we can remove that printf. Did we recompile? I think so. Anyway, since we didn't see that, maybe we just go up and let's just give us the exp .e1 let's just go here, printf L again, and the AST type of exp e1. And for that we gotta import dmd.ast type name and then we gotta use it. So ast type name of exp.e1 and returns a string which we can't pass to printf, so we gotta get the pointer out. There we go. It can't resolve to cars, which I guess would be exp to cars. We see an L again, and it's an identify expression. So this F is still an identifier when we reach the L again. So if it's a dot identifier, it'll go here with symbol offset, it'll go here. Thought we removed this. So now we have the problem that we do not exactly know which type that is. So there is an exp.f, and it may be that the exp.f might be said so it resolves this whole thing. I think we already passed the place which we wanted to modify, which was 4376, which then was here. So that means at this point we may not necessarily know. We may not necessarily know which kind of function we are calling. Because it hasn't been resolved yet. That is obviously a problem. I can see if we have something better in here at that point. But I think since there's just an identifier there, there's really no point in trying to get the exp e out. I mean, we can try. But I would assume that x.f is null at that point. Yes, x.f is null. But we can certainly try and resolve what it is. Yeah, it's just that we have to resolve this identifier without changing anything, actually. Okay. Let's make something here. So let's assume I just didn't do that. Let's just not do that and see what happens. Because that would give us the chance of it working if we change the position. Okay, this doesn't help us. This call graph doesn't really help us. We have the problem that we didn't do the array expression semantic, which we should have done. Let's say the only thing we comment out is the pre-function parameters, which is the check that we have to fool. Okay, so now we temporarily fooled this check into passing. That's good. Well, it's not good because we haven't solved it properly, but it allows us to move on past that point. We can later think about how to properly do it. Now we have this thing. Function test alias simple y. Test alias f is not callable with the argument s1. What that means is that s1, the type expression s1, is not convertible to the alias y type. And in the model of type functions, any type implicitly converts to alias, to the t alias, to the type. And that currently doesn't happen. So let's see where we see a two parameter. This should be unique enough that we can see something. Here it happens in M type. I'd like to know where in M type, here in M type. So let's have a look at this one. This is a get param error. That can, I mean, I happen to know that it can because I did this before. That can be called by multiple places. So we do our trick with the end line equals line, and I also happen to know it only gets called on this file. Then we just have to do this. And just add the line here. And then we'll see in the error message where this thing gets triggered. At least we would see that if we did everything correctly. Yeah, and the line we have to modify is here. Before we do that, let's back out this modification. And yeah, also the parameter that we passed in here. And while we're at it, let's do the same for expression sum. Here, we remove this. And this. Just to keep the diff to a reasonable level, and then we go to the place in M type that we saw where the alias is being done. Okay. this is in a function that's called call match, and that tries to find out whether a certain call expression matches a function and whether it has to convert parameters. And the exact place where we failed is here, which is if we have a message and u is less than n args, then get the parameter for that argument and p. And I don't know what p is, but I assume it's a parameter. Wait, this only happens for t-array? No. Okay, so this is after this here succeeds. And finding out where we have to do the actual change is not that easy. However, unfortunately, I have to answer a certain call of nature, so I'll be back in a sec. Okay, I'm back. What we have to do actually is this. Withdraw arrow gets triggered here. So before we get here, we have to make sure that if the parameter we're going to is so if the expression that is our argument is type exp, then if it is a type exp and the parameter is of the alias, then we say match convert. So that would be here. So we just do this. And before we try and calling implicitly converts to again, we will just quickly hack this in here. We say if type of the parameter to ty equals the alias, we set the match to match convert. And I seem to remember that this will insert a cast expression. So we say m equals match.convert. And that also makes sure that a match that didn't have to convert would be closer. Yes, and now we get a different error message, which is cannot implicitly convert expression s1 of type s1 to alias. I happen to know where this comes from, and finding that out took really long. So I won't do it right now. I will just go to the file where this comes from. This comes from the cast. And there we just have to look for cannot imp. And then we go to the cannot implicitly convert error. And that happens when we do this, because the e.implicit conf2 t doesn't give a match. So we would go here where we basically error out. I guess the correct thing here was to fix implicit conf to and that would maybe just work. Okay, let's say M would spit out const convert. Then what would happen is ecast to sct would be called. So let's see forecast. This is a pretty big function. It doesn't have a specific way to do type exp. So who knows what this will do? Oh. Maybe the first order of business would be to find out where implicit conf2 is defined. There's an implicit cast2 in expression and in dcast. So we don't want the cast2, we want the conf. This is too much. Implicit conf2 is, yeah, it seems to be defined in M type itself. Though it doesn't seem to take an expression. In expression.h there is a match with implicit conf2 defined, and in expression.d there is also one. I assume this is the one that we actually want, because we do need to check if the expression we want to cast is a type expression, and only if it is a type expression we can do an implicit conversion to alias. I think. So let's do that. Yeah, it seems like this is not actually... Yeah. This is not actually where the implicit conf2 we want is defined. So where's the one that we saw and thought that was it? There is an implicit conf2 in dcast which takes the expression and the type, and I assume this is the one that we actually have to override, and that can, or rather extend, and that can give us what we need. Yeah, and there it also says expression implicit conf2. So it does seem like this just changed where it lives. Somebody changed this from being a member of expression to being a free function in dcast. Luckily nobody relies on that header file being correct, otherwise we would have a problem. This is something that sometimes happens in the development of DMD, and actually seeing this, I'm already not in the mood anymore. I'm not in the mood anymore to do this properly. I am not in the mood for programming on this further for this Sunday. So I'm sorry. I have to leave this stream without having gotten this simple example that we had to compile. That would just have returned S1 because of how that monkeying around with that stuff happened. I will look at the git blame off stream to not make anyone feel bad. And by the way, if you're the person who did this, you should feel